Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show, The Beautifully Bruised and the CPS Show. I am so happy that you have tuned in today. We definitely have some information and some dialogue and a special guest that's on today that has a great story of what it takes to endure and to overcome what she has been through is something I think is going to be so encouraging and motivating to so many people that are currently, being affected by CPS and whatever way that may be. I am your host. I am Latrika Jones. I just again want to say I do appreciate you for taking out time to tune in today because there's many things that you can be doing, but you're choosing to educate yourself to be able to chime in and understand what it's like being a victim of CPS and what it's like, the things that they can do. And I do believe that knowledge is power. Transparency transforms. So I don't take this platform lightly. First and foremost, I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ because without Him, I'm absolutely nothing. But with Him, I am everything. So I am truly grateful that He allowed me to overcome what I went through with CPS and to be able to trust me enough to sit here in front of you today to share my story and to bring on people that are willing to also be transparent to help you come out or help you totally avoid altogether what we've been through. So again, I want to say thank you for tuning in, and I want to without any further ado, I want to get right to our guest today. We do have Fern Jenkins. She's the executive director of Heather Hopes Incorporation. How are you doing today, Fern?
I am doing great, and I want to thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. I definitely knew that you would be a great candidate to show, again, what it's like to go through it and to overcome from it and help others along the way by doing that. So without any further ado, Fern, can you go ahead and share with us today? Where are you from? Where are you located?
I am located in Fort Worth, Texas.
All right. I'm telling you, I'm putting Texas on the map. Texas, even though they say statistics wise that Texas is known to have the majority of CPS cases, but guess what? They forgot to share that a lot of the CPS cases we have overcome what they've done, and we're actually going back into the trenches and bringing other people along to avoid the traps and plots of CPS because we're making you stronger because iron sharpens iron. So I just want to
Yes.
share that as well. So again, I am so happy that Fern is here today. She is a great woman that have shared, have went through a lot of experience with CPS and other encounters, and she wanted to be here to share her story and so much more she have to share with you as well. So I like to, since we're on that point right there, Fern, I think that would be the great place to ask you, what is it really truly that made you want to share your story with us?
Well, I want to share my story because I want other women and other families and men to know that you can overcome the trauma that CPS put you through. You and your children and your family can be reunited. And that it's going to take some perseverance. And
Right.
for me, I even had to go through some therapy in order for me to overcome some of the traumatic experiences that I had with CPS.
Mm-hmm. That is so great because, like you said, normally I notice with my own life, sometimes it's gonna cost you something. You
Yes.
know, it's not going to be an easy slate. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but what I can tell you this is me being a living witness. When you come out from the pain, God can turn that same power into purpose. He can
Yes.
turn that same pain into power. So don't put a period where there should be a comma. Because you never know how God is going to use your story. Like, for example, today, and we have Fern on here. She's now, she overcame the things dealing with CPS, the things that they've taken her through, and she started her own corporation. So it could actually, honestly, it can propel you into a higher level. So don't be dismayed by small or setbacks because it can actually take you much further than what you ever could imagine. And by you saying that, Fern, that's a great, like you said, it takes sometimes counseling. I went through counseling. I still go to counseling.
Me too.
I highly recommend it. I do. I'm laughing, but I'm for real, y'all. I highly recommend it. And since you said that, Fern, I also want to ask you with CPS, your encounter that you had to experience and you had to go through from the trauma that it does cause. How has CPS affected your life, and what have you learned from this experience, from that experience?
Well, I'm glad that's a great question, and thank you for asking me that.
Mhm.
Originally, CPS took me through so much with my children. I have three sons.
Mhm.
With my middle son and my youngest son, that's sort of the two places that I had. I had to go through, take drug tests randomly, just out of the clear blue sky. They would call me and say, go take a drug test.
Wow.
Even after I had passed every drug test,
My
they
God.
still traumatized me. I went through counseling, and they still wasn't satisfied. And with my second son, I wasn't even using drugs, and they still wanted to continue to take me through a drug test and have visitations by the CPS worker. And it was so traumatic. And the depression, I
Mhm.
went through so much depression. I think I developed a major depressive disorder because of the traumatic experiences that I had with CPS.
Wow. My
I
God.
couldn't even keep a job to take care of my children because I had to leave my jobs in order for me to go take the UAs, because they never would tell me, hey, we're going to call you at 1 or 2. And I only had 1 hour,
Wow.
1 hour to arrive to the to the place where they wanted me to take the drug test.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that, Fern, because that is something too that I almost think by me studying psychology in college, I almost is looking back to the way CPS do things. I almost think it was a form of the way they try to break you down. Because like you say, sometimes it's impossible. The time frame they give you to get these major tasks completed is so stressful because you're not
Yes.
saying, okay, be here by 2 o'clock to get you another some eggs from the store. It's like if you don't be here to take this drug test, you could lose your child. And I don't know what good parent will take something that's so detrimental lightly and it doesn't stress you because like you said, you still have to work, you still have to make a living, you have to be able to provide for you and them, your children. So you're trying to balance and maintain your job and doing all these different tasks and services that they're requiring of you, and sometimes it can become so overwhelming. So with that being said, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Fern, because I want to ask you, can you share how old was your child when they first taken your child into custody, and what age was your child when you were reunified?
My middle son was actually removed from my home when he was 4 months old.
Wow.
And then I did not see my son again until he was 16 or 17 years old. And it was so traumatic. I literally would look through the phone book. I would look on the internet. By this time, we had developed a Facebook had been developed. So I placed a message. If you even go to my Facebook page today, that same message is still there, even though he and I have been reunified.
My God.
And I eventually was able to reconnect with him, and we have a phenomenal relationship today. But
Praise.
one of his questions was, "Mom, where were you all of this time?"
Hmm.
And so I had to explain to him that originally, yes, I was using, but I was in treatment when his father took him away from me. So there was really no need for them to remove my son from the home.
You
Okay.
know, I'm sorry, Fern. I just have to piggyback on that because, again, without me having my own personal encounter with CPS, and I'm sure, like you could say as well, I used to once think that CPS was for the children or to bring in necessary, what is the word I'm looking for? For example, I found out that they provided resources to help you pay your utility bills, to help you with counseling, free counseling, to help you with daycare expenses. And my caseworker never mentioned it. And
Yes.
so you see what I'm saying? So the reason why I say that is, like you said, why not have just implemented the necessary services, the treatment that you needed at the time to help you with that season of your life instead of abruptly disrupting your child to cause him now to be traumatized? I guess what I'm saying, instead of you making the situation better, to me, it seemed like you made it worse.
Yes, they did. And the reason why it was extremely traumatic is because my oldest son, they were 5 years apart. So his mindset was, why, why are we separated? Why
Right.
are we? Because I went from seeing my middle son from every weekend and Wednesdays to, in the very end, I saw my child for 1 hour on Sundays.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there.
And I was so traumatized by it. One of
Wow.
my elders at the church, she says, what you need to do is that 1 hour. She said, I want you to be the best mom that you can be.
Right.
right? To be the best mom that you can be. So I had to start thinking of creative ways and ideas to implement during this service, because during this visitation,
Okay.
because the person that was watching over us in the visitation, she used her authority. She was very dogmatic. She was very rude to me, and she made me feel like I was less than a mom. And especially, you have to keep in mind, I was in recovery, so she was stripping everything away from me that I was trying to take and utilize for my life to bring my family back together.
And let me just say, with that being said, for you dropping so much information, we have Nadine Perez is saying, I'm a mother who experienced this also. With additional stunts by them, it seems the system is designed for the parent to fail. And pretty much, Nadine, that's pretty much, I'm in agreement with you by saying that. Because, you know,
I
it's
was
not always,
definitely in agreement.
absolutely, absolutely. And not to cut you off, but thank you, Nadine, for that comment, because again, that goes to show you this is not just one person. It's people, it's women, parents from all over the United States. The same treatment is being done to. So again, Fern, thank you for stepping up today on this platform, sharing your truth.
Absolutely. I also wanted to add with my youngest son, because I had three sons. My youngest son, my mindset was he had to develop a relationship with his older brother. But because my second son wasn't raised in the home, he grew up believing I only have one brother, no matter how many times I would say to him, you have another brother. So every time I had a home, okay, I had went from one apartment that we lived in for about 10 years and started selling cars. Okay, I went from being extremely impoverished to have making really good money. So we built this home, and I always, everywhere we went, I always had a room, and I always bought clothes for Isaiah because I was trying to fill that void. You know, maybe if I have some toys for him every Christmas, or maybe if I have clothes for him every school year, he'll be able to come home. So I always had this faith that one day I would be able to see him, and every year I wouldn't see him. For over 10 years, I didn't see Isaiah.
My God, my God. And you just actually um, made me think on something. So you said why you were dealing with CPS in your case, you lost jobs. With you lost jobs. Do you know how many jobs you lost throughout that long period of time with CPS?
Okay, I can tell you there was well over 50 jobs that I
Oh
lost.
my God.
For several reasons. Number one, I was depressed.
Okay.
Number two, I wasn't making a lot of money, so I couldn't buy a good dependable car, right? And even though they had sent me to all of these different classes, like parent, they sent me to a parenting class, but the lady that was in the parenting class, she was so adamant about me, staying in the class and listening to the information. But not one time did anybody ask me how I felt. Not one time did anybody ask me, was there some things that I wanted to do different in my life in order for me to establish a relationship with my son. They just had information that they wanted me to learn, but nobody asked me, was it any useful? Was it helpful? Because I wasn't having a problem being a parent. That wasn't my problem.
Oh,
My problem was going back and forth to the classes because number one, I didn't have a car. So if I didn't make it to the classes, they penalized me for that.
you dropped such a great nugget, and I think that's so important for our viewers to know, because you made me also relive and think back and recalled, like you say, they place you in these classes to watch these movies, and the movies that I saw, maybe it was just my particular classroom, but like the movies from the 70s.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm serious, like the VHS, the ones you have to dust off and clean off, and
Yes.
and so it was so, I mean, and it's not just the type of the material they use or utilize, but it was something that wasn't even relevant to me.
It was not.
It was, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing that was effective to me. You know, it was just something like they're giving you something to do just to continue to keep you in the system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, watch all these old VHS tapes. And I like that you said that, because normally somebody that really want to make sure you're plugged in and you're showing evidence of what we're saying that you need help with from what they're saying, they would normally ask you, do Q&A questions. Okay, how did you feel about watching it? So like you said, altogether, how do you feel, period?
Mm-hmm.
where are you right now? What can we do to help you to make you better? Since we are here, we're saying we need you to be the parent and have these services completed. What can I do as your caseworker to help you implement these services? How do you feel right now? Because, like you said, you felt maybe depressed.
I
You was
was
there,
extremely,
but
yeah,
you can be physically somewhere and still not be emotionally present. And
yes.
and I think that's so important. So I'm so glad that you said that, and you just answered my next question. So you said that is the reason that why you wasn't able to keep the jobs because you was traumatized, being tossed to and fro from going to take all these random drug tests. And with that being said, so when you took your drug test, Fern, where were you at the time? Did they not like call you a day before time, or was it always sporadically, or how did that look like?
Okay, so CPS had already told me what the way the process was going to work. And my caseworker, we were not from the same culture. She didn't have any idea about my makeup. She had no idea about my family origin. She had no idea about my finances or anything of that nature. Her
Mhm.
response to me was, I'm going to give you a goal, and I'm going to give you some instructions, and you need to follow my instructions. So she was very artative in her speech and very aggressive. And
Sounds like.
so I shared with her. I said, "Look, the car that I have is not a very dependable car, and I live at that time. I lived on the north side, and she scheduled these drug tests on 30. It was located on 30 and Forest Hill Drive.
Hmm.
I mean, not Forest Hill, but something Forest.
And that, yes, and that
Yeah,
area.
you know what area I'm talking about, right there
Right,
off
I
of
do.
30.
Hmm.
And so I would have to drive from wherever I was. And at that time, I was working at an insurance company. I believe it was the insurance company I was working at. During that time frame, I ended up losing the job because I wasn't able to make it back to work on time. And another thing was, she would only give me 1 hour to make it to take the urinalysis test.
Only
And
one.
most times, I always made it on time to take the test, and every time I was always clean,
Wow.
because my goal was, if I do this, I'll get my son back.
Of course, of
Not
course.
just visitation. I wanted to have my son back in a home with
Unified.
his other two brothers. And
Absolutely.
even today, do you know my children are adults, and they still have that they still have a brokenness between them that we're still trying to mend because of that. And that happened way back 24 years ago.
I think, everything you're saying, it definitely speaks for itself. So basically, this is not a temporary scar. This can be lifelong.
Yes, it can. It is extremely detrimental for any parent to have to endure with their children. I also, with my sons, when my second son was removed from the home and it left only my older son there, he was so angry. He
He was.
was so angry to the point that when he went to school, he would just lash out, and
Oh,
they would call me and say, "Can you come to the school?" Now, one time the CPS said, "Hey, can we get counseling for him?" Because he needed assistance too.
they
Hey,
should.
is there
Yeah.
anything that you need? You need daycare? Do you need what can we do for your household? What can we do to upgird you so
Of
you can be
course.
more successful? They did offer for me to go to CATS,
They
but
did.
the lady was so adamant about me going to CATS, and I had a vehicle, as I stated before, that was not dependable.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Sometimes my car would stop down the street from CATS, and I would have to walk, the remainder of the way. She wasn't concerned about that. Now, one time did she say, "Hey, would you like a bus pass for you and your children?"
Said that, right? I'm sure as a government, they have access to assist with transportation. And again, that's why I say, if you have invaded my life, telling me something I did right, whether it's right or wrong, I would just expect for you to provide the services to help make it better.
Yes. And
That's all. That's all I'm saying.
what kept me so confused was, I have my older son. If I was such a bad parent, help me understand why the other two children were not removed from my home.
That is a great question. So I'm good enough for one child, but not my other children.
Yes.
See, that's confusion to me. And I know God is not of confusion. And I've heard, unfortunately, that you're not the only parent that has said that they were allowed to keep maybe one of their kids or one or two, but the other child they had to give them up. So what are they stipulations based off of? Is it? I've heard that because it's the parents of the children.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand their they their reasoning, their thinking process. So with that being said too, Fern, because you actually made me think back, and the Holy Spirit revealed to me, I want to be obedient and say what I believe God want me to share. I also want people to know when you are doing your services, because I was like you. My case was years ago, thank God, but I remember that they required me to take some parenting, watch those videotapes, those old VHS tapes that they had to blow dust off of to put them in a VCR. Those, okay, that part. But I remember some kind of way, Fern, they accidentally, I don't know how they tracked. I know we had to sign the list when we went into the building to watch the show. We was present to sit down to be a part of the watch the videotapes. But some kind of way, it got back to my caseworker that I wasn't there. And that count against you when you don't do the services that they recommend, right?
Yes.
I was actually there. And they basically were saying you didn't show up to do what we told you to do. So I had to go back in late at night. I was able, and it took me late at night before I left the class because I didn't leave until I spoke to someone that was in charge, like a supervisor, to validate, no, ma'am, I was present. So she literally had to go through the tracking attendance log. And some kind of way they made an error and said, oh, no, you weren't there. I'm sorry. So I only say that to say this. Make sure when you do attend these services that your caseworkers are recommended that they count you absent. Even if you have to take a picture of the login list showing proof of evidence that I was present. Because if they, whatever reason, some shenanigans come about, they're saying that you wasn't there, you have proof to validate, yes, I was present. So that happened to me, and I wouldn't want that to happen to somebody else because, like we know, time is of essence. They give you a certain amount of time to get these things done, and they might not have another class for you to take until after your hearing. So you just want to make sure that that you got evidence to prove that you're doing what they're asking. So with that being said, too, Fern, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I think it's important because I know you also shared, was it a certain type of movie? And please don't disclose your children's name, your son's name, or the caseworkers, even though the case is obviously by the grace and mercy of God is in the past. But what was the name of the movie they wanted you to watch? I think it's interesting.
It was called I Lost Isaiah, or She Lost Isaiah, or something
Losing
like that.
Isaiah. Is that the one with
Yeah, losing Isaiah.
Losing
And
Isaiah?
yes, and I shared with her, I don't want to watch this particular movie. And the caseworker said to me, if you do not watch this movie, you will not have an opportunity to get your child back. I had to sit through that movie. I had to sit through that movie. And when I tell you I cried like a newborn baby the entire time I was watching the movie because that particular situation was so close to my heart.
That's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm.
It was so close to my heart. I'm like, ma'am, I just lost my son, and you want me to watch a movie called Losing Isaiah?
Earn,
Are you serious?
earn. Maybe it's just me. Okay, it just might be me. But honestly, I think that the movie title was so close and personal to what she was going through. It almost like it was a jive. It was almost like, what did you call that when people are trying to be sarcastic?
She was being very arrogant and sarcastic.
It was like that movie was actually what she was living. And to me, a person could easily get offended by it, by even recommending that title. When you first told me the title of that movie and what you shared, I was like, is this a joke? And it wasn't, because like she said, if you didn't watch it, didn't she tell you that it could be
Recommended.
yeah. So it almost like That's why I say I pray everybody, I pray nobody have to deal with CPS, but the reality of the world is, unfortunately, something that's just life, things occur. That's why if it does occur, we want to make sure that you're grounded and prepared. That's why this platform is such a blessing, because it's aired 24/7. Anytime you're feeling discouraged, anytime you're feeling down, depressed, and that's easy for you to feel that way when you have your children being removed by someone who may not even have integrity. And a lot of times these cases are involved with money, power, and politics. It's not even about you and your children. My attorney told me, take you and your children out of the equation. This is far bigger than what you could ever imagine. Some people call it the black hole, because there's so many revolving doors and things constantly are changing. So what I'm saying is this. Oh my God. I mean, when you gave me that title of that name, I just thought that was it was like a jive. It was like a jab. And it was very sarcastic in a way, and a joke that wasn't funny, because this is my life and my children that you're playing with, and it's not a joke. So that just came to mind to me when you said that. So, okay, I'm sorry for
Oh, you're fine. You're
like,
doing great.
I'm like, really? You want me to watch this movie? Oh, okay. But I know there's a game. It's a game, and you know how to play it, and you better know how to play it better than they do. Believe that. And I just must say, I must share this disclaimer. I'm not saying that all CPS caseworkers are bad, or the people that's affiliated, the counselors that they hire, the third party contractors, they're bad people, because I actually met some good people. I truly did. People I never forget, because they actually was a ram in a bush for me. They would tell me things that my own CPS caseworker wasn't sharing. They actually told me, you need to report her. She's not treating you right. So I have to make it, I have to be fair and say, I'm not saying all CPS caseworkers are bad. I'm only speaking in reference to the ones that lack integrity.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I'm calling out. So, with that being said, Fern, you said they even, and I'm watching the clock. So much information, some good information that's being shared that I know it's going to be so useful to so many people. You mentioned that they lowered your CPS child visits. What was it originally, and what did they reduce it down to, if you don't mind me asking?
No problem. So originally, my my situation was a little different and very complex.
Oh, I bet.
Uh, I started out visiting with my son um, every weekend and every Wednesday, so I could pick him up when I got off, or whenever his father got off, I could pick him up, and then I would return him after church. So
Okay.
what they were allowing me to do, because I was going to church at the time, and one of my requests was, can I please take him to church?
Right.
Okay, because I wanted him to be raised in church. And I
Absolutely.
knew that they didn't go to church. So
Uh-huh.
we went on the weekends, and we went from every weekend to 3 weekends to 2 weekends to 1 weekend to 4 hours to 1 hour of visitation. That was over a course of a time frame. And no matter what his father said to the CPS caseworker, she just agreed. No matter what he said to the attorney, she just agreed. No one came and asked
Elaborate
me.
on that, Fern. What do you mean when you say that, well, no matter what he said, that she would disagree?
She would, the caseworker, you know, if he said, okay, like I was sharing with you last night, my
Mhm.
son, we were having a birthday. I still have the pictures. We were
Mhm.
having a birthday party. And in the birthday party, you know, he was like 2 years old. He
Little bit.
fell. So when
Mhm.
he fell, he had like a little bruise right here, because he's real light skinned, about your color. So a
Okay.
little bruise on him looks darker.
Right.
And so what he did was he took a picture of the bruise and he blew it up. So when he took it to the caseworker and he took it to the court, they then reduced my visitation rights, saying that I was abusive to him. Okay, so I'm abusive to this kid, but I'm not abusive to the one that lives in the house with me. So I didn't find out until several years later when I met my son. Okay, when I met him, his father said, well, the only reason why I didn't take the other kids is because the judge said I couldn't, because he wasn't my son. So he really did all those things to me. And the caseworker from CPS, they only did all of those things to me because they want to abuse their power. It wasn't because I was actually doing something wrong.
Okay, since you said that, Fern, you got me thinking again. So anything that your ex would say to the caseworker, instead of her validating it first to make sure it's actually true, she automatically agreed to what your ex said, and she will reduce your time with spending with your child, whether
Exactly.
it's true or not.
So after it took a long time before I got another caseworker that actually started asking me questions, right, in order for me to get the help that I needed. But the first CPS caseworker that I had, I can't even remember her name. I wanted to make sure I deleted her name from my brain because I got angry every time I thought about her.
I can only imagine from what you're telling us today. She
Yeah,
definitely wasn't to me in your favor.
she wasn't. I've forgiven her now. I've forgiven her.
Yeah, and that's what we should do. Because all you're doing, if you don't forgive, it's just blocking your blessings. You forgive them. I didn't forget,
Right.
but I have forgiven them, and you have to. That I'm so glad you mentioned that. You truly you do. You have to forgive them. Um, but I just want to say that that's so interesting because I've had another guest, and also it triggers me to think back to my encounter because I noticed that they were pretty much cushioning the ex, pretty much like you just said, whatever they called and said, whether it was true or not. A lot of times they don't even validate if it's true or not. They just immediately go off of what they say. I noticed, like I've even heard where they'll remove the ex from child support. They will, like you just said, they lowered your visits with your children. So it almost seemed like it's a bias that you're dealing with. And can I ask you, did you, and really you've already answered the question in so many ways, do you think it was personal with this case
I,
1st?
I really do because of the way that she treated me. I actually do believe that it was bias. I feel like I was discriminated against, and I feel like she felt because she was in authority that she had the right
Right,
to take away my rights because she could. She
right,
never even not one time did she and I have an engaging conversation. Not one time did she even ask me anything about the things that he had reported to her. She never communicated to me or talked to me about it. She would just say, well, Mr. So and so said, A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. And so we're going to do this. She never even asked me, did this happen? How did it happen? Would you like to talk about it? She never even inquired.
oh my God,
And I did pay child support for 18 consecutive years.
oh my God. So I don't understand as a caseworker, and I'm going to be having a caseworker that's going to be coming on the upcoming shows. That's a great question. I'm going to ask her, like, how do you get a full understanding of your clients when you don't effectively communicate with them? Because I thought that was, and I again, that's a great nugget that you dropped because I can attest to a lot of things. I noticed that the caseworker that would allow. I remember that it was a time. I remember she called me. My car was in a shop at the time, and I'd be very brief. And I wasn't able to go to one of my visits at that particular time because the car was in the shop. But I was able to reschedule for another time when my car was available. But she did advise me, call me from vacation. She was on vacation and called me literally from a vacation and said, get a Uber or get a what is it, a Lyft or something to take you there immediately. And I'm like, well, who's going to pay for it? That was my question because my funds were tied in to the attorney that you pay for because you get what you pay for. I don't care what it is, firm. You get what you pay for. And I was willing to sacrifice getting an attorney that knew CPS laws, that was aggressive, and that was truly going to represent and fight for me and my child. So I didn't care what it took. I said to myself, and it still remains, if it take me my last breath in my body to pull my child out of this vicious, corrupt, dark system, then so be it. That's how determined I was to make sure that this child was not going to be another statistic in this broken system. So, with that being said, that's when another lady told me she's not supposed to do that. I was actually told, were you aware that CPS caseworkers can actually pick the child up and take them to the visits? Were you aware of that, Fern?
I was not, until not to right now. You're the first person that shared that information with me. I had no idea.
And
I had no idea.
I didn't know it neither because I'm thinking like I made it known that my car was in the shop. She knew that. Like you said, when you was trying to go to your business, you was having mechanical problems, but she still only gave you a 60-minute time frame. So it's almost like they are aware of that. But like I was told by another person that worked for the government, yeah, they can take you. She didn't.
Yes.
Actually threatened me and said if I didn't get there, that it could be, even more, it could be consequences behind it. But at
Yes.
that time, I thank God because He gave me the strength to be not only strong in my mind and my spirit, but I at that time because she would do things to me as scare tactics, because they know a lot of times you are fearful because you don't know what's going on, what to expect, and like you say, your caseworker to me seemed to be throwing around her power. So that's why she was doing and saying some of the things that she was doing. So I just want to mention that normally, if things have changed, a caseworker can normally take you to your business if you're having car problems or things of that nature, and maybe can actually help you with transportation. It's the government; they have access, great access to resources. So just be mindful of that. Other than that, too, Fern, you said that you mentioned that from what you just shared, that you made an attempt to reach your son on Facebook. What because we have a little bit more time in the segment, but I want to ask you because to me, I've never heard a guest say that to go to that extent. What made you do that?
All right. So what I started doing originally was the first one when we had MySpace. Remember that? We had
Yes,
MySpace
I
and
do. I do.
okay, so I went through every level of social media looking for my son. I created an account, and it's still if you go to my Facebook page now,
It's
if
still
you
on there
read
today. I'm gonna look for it.
yeah, go look at what about Fern or my bio. It's in my bio. I never
Wow.
took it off. And his dad asked me when I found him, "Can you take that stuff off of your Facebook page?" I said, "Absolutely not. I'm never taking it off. I'm leaving it on there forever." And
Do he
I'm
feel
leaving it
bad
on
now,
there,
Fern?
yeah, not to hurt him, but for other people to see what God has done.
Oh my
Right?
God.
So
Okay.
I've gone from MySpace to Twitter to TikTok to Facebook to Instagram, and I made all these posts. And
Wow.
my post basically says something like this: My name is Fern Jenkins. My son's name is ABC. His father's name is ABC. I do not want to take my son away from his father.
Wow.
I just want to see my son so he and I can establish a relationship. If
Absolutely.
you know where he is, please contact me at area code 817-791-5718.
Wow.
That's what it said. And I never took it down. And I would go online and I would make all of these videos about, hey, have you anybody seen us? Oh, I almost said his name. Anybody seen my son? Have you met his father? And things of that nature. Sorry about that. And so people would come back online and they would say, I think he go to this school and I think he go to that school. Oh, I think I saw him over here. And so originally one night, a guy really called me one night and
Mhm.
he left me a voicemail and he said, your son go to ABC school. But I couldn't understand it because he was whispering.
Right.
So nobody could understand what he said. And I said, okay, God, I'm just going to keep on praying. So probably a couple of years later, I got that phone call.
Wow.
I got the phone call, and the lady said, I know the address to where your son lives. She said, I got the address. So
Oh,
she gave me
Fern.
the address. First of all, she told me what school he went to. And I went to the school. I went up and down the sidewalk because I waited till school was out. Me and my best friend, her name is Evelyn.
Uh-huh.
And we looked and we looked and looked and finally I found this little kid and he looked like he was a talker. So I said, excuse me, do you know so and so? He said, yes, I know him. He said, his daddy just picked him up. You just missed him. I
What?
said, okay. So I told my friend, I said, let's go to the house. We went to the house. And as I'm getting ready to, because I'm checking the mailbox because nobody answered the door to see if there's any mail there.
Right.
And
Right.
his dad comes down the road. And I look at him because I can see him through the window. And he passes right by me. And I just stopped. I started screaming, Jesus, please. I said, God, have mercy. Please let him stop, Lord, so I can see my son. Please, God. He stopped immediately. He turned around. He came back. My son got out of the vehicle. He said, are you my mom? I am not lying to you, Latricia. My baby tears was this big around. I mean, they were huge. These tears were so big. I've never seen tears flow from somebody's eyes like that before. And I've been in ministry and doing street ministry for years. And I just held him in my arms as tight as I could. And we just cried. And I told him, I said, I've been looking for you all your life. And I love you. So we talked, and he met his brother, his younger brother. They just hugged each other and cried like that was their first time meeting because when he left, my youngest son was a baby. And after that, I didn't see him again for a long time. And then when he got ready to graduate, that same lady called me. And I told my husband that morning, I said, babe, I really believe today is the day. He said, baby, you always get, I said, no, 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 no. I know how I normally do. I said, but today is really the day. I said, I've been praying about it. God gonna let me see him today. So the lady called me during church. After church, I was dressed to go to his graduation. I
Right.
was dressed because I knew God was doing it that day.
Right.
Anyway, we go to the graduation. We get there. We walk down. We get to the rail. I asked this lady, I said, ma'am, what is the first letter of your child's last name? And she said S. I said, oh my God, because I know what his last name will start with.
Right. Right. Right.
And anyway, as he walked out, I just started screaming out his name, and he looked up at me. He says, Mom, Mom, Mom. And he almost held up the line because he was so excited for me to be there. Afterwards, I ended up meeting with him. I gave him some money. And you know what?
What?
After that, because I need for everybody to understand this because I don't have a lot of time.
Okay, please.
After that, okay, I just messaged him on Facebook for a year. For a whole year, I messaged him, I love you, call me. You can I give him my address. I just did it every month for a whole year. And finally, one day he called. He said, Mama, I love you.
Oh, Jesus, Fern. We have a guest, I'm sorry, a viewer, Sandra Stanley, saying you're making her cry right now with your testimony.
Well,
And
bless the
it's
Lord.
pricking my heart too. I pray, that's always my prayer to God, a move in these sessions.
Well, I tell you this, he and I have a relationship like this today. I'll tell you in private more about it, but when I tell you God did this, there is no way that our relationship could be restored because CPS and other people did everything that they could to destroy and to detour my child and for us having a relationship. The CPS did everything they could to. Now I'll be honest with you because y'all don't know.
Okay.
I was in a mental institution because of that. I lost my mind.
My God. My
I
God.
couldn't even take care of my other two kids. My friend had to. And then I went and got some help. And I said, no, the devil is a lie.
Right.
I will be healed, delivered, and set free. And I'm going to take care of all three of them. And all three of them going to be at home.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
And don't let CPS do that to you. You
Oh,
got to
Jesus.
stand firm on what the word of God says. He said, Lo, will I be with you always, even until the end of time. Great is he that is in me than he that is in the world.
Yeah.
You are more than a conqueror.
That's
CPS don't have the power.
they
You got.
don't. They don't. Oh, Jesus. I
He
feel
said
that
he's given us
today.
he's given us the power to walk over snakes and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy
That's right.
and your children.
That's right. That is so good, Burn. So many, oh, Jesus. So many chains are going to be broken by your testimony. They're going to be, people are going to be set free. They're going to come into taking their scales off their eyes and unclogging those ears and speaking up for themselves and their children because of your testimony, because of your transparency, because of your truth. To me, that's what it's about. It's truly, that's what it's about. And also what comes to me as well is sometimes people are doing things to hurt people because they don't like their who they're in a relationship with, and they use their kids as weapons against them. I'm praying that'll stop as well. I'm praying your
Absolutely.
story would also be a witness of why this needs to be stopped because you're really hurting your children more than anything. Karina is saying it is true if someone has a case, there are always changing workers and why. In California, how many times the mother see the child 1 or 2 days a week? The mother sees babies 1 day a week. Again, these are bonds that they're being broken. It's nothing like a mother. It's nothing like a mother. And we all make mistakes. If God based all people on mistakes, will nobody be alive? Y'all, we have to do better than this. These are children that are dying in foster care systems, if not physically, mentally, and emotionally. We
And
have,
definitely spiritually.
and spiritually. I've heard families say they child don't even believe, didn't even believe in God anymore, just because CPS took away their siblings or their parents. Mm. Nadine Perez is saying, I've had my kids back since 2017. I've earned my associates. I want to say her associate's degree, her AA,
Yes. Mhm.
in paralegal studies in hopes of helping parents mixed up in this destructive agency. Nadine, God bless you because you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
What the devil meant for evil, God has turned it for the good. I'm a living testimony of that. Fern Jenkins, the executive director of Heather Hopes Incorporation, is another firm example of that. Oh, I'm so glad. I am. Listen, I'm gonna take a running after this show.
Did you know this is one of the reasons why I started Heather Hopes Inc. so I can help families? And
Really?
another reason why I went to school, I have my master's in pastoral psychology, and I
Wow.
also have a bachelor's of science in social work. This is the reason why I
Get it,
did that.
Fern.
I
Get it,
started
Fern.
out with a fifth grade education, but I'm here to tell you today, not anymore. I
Oh my
am, God has raised me up. He has healed my
God.
mind and my life and my kids so we can go back into the highways and the byways and to bring men and women
Dash
into
them
the
out.
fold, into the kingdom of God and
Jesus.
restore families back into
You better
unity
say it.
with health.
You better say it. That's
He
what this
said,
is about.
beloved. Yeah, what is that? It says, beloved, I wish above all things, even I wished above all things that you prosper, even as your soul prosper.
Yes.
He said it, beloved. He called us beloved, y'all.
Speak
That's
on it.
amazing.
That is amazing. That is beautiful. That's what this is about. It's to help others out or to help them avoid it altogether. That's why I say I thank God for Attorney Vince. I thank God for Grace, the producer, because it takes a team to make the dream work. What they say, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
And and again, this platform, Fern's testimony, her story, her transparency, her truth. These are irons. Iron sharpens irons. Transparency transforms. You can tune in anytime on this segment 24/7 to be encouraged, to be inspired, to be motivated. You know, it's here for you. Just plug in. And with that being said, Fern, we're about to wrap up the show. God, this
Yes.
is such a great segment, and we even had a viewer just shared that this is a great show today. I want to ask you, because of all this great knowledge and wisdom God have allowed you to endure and to overcome, can you please tell me, is it true that you said you have actually written a book about your experience?
I have. And the name of that book is What's in the Closet. And it talks about my lived experiences and some of the detriment that I went through and traumatic experiences that I've had in my life that led up to that event and how God allowed me to overcome every obstacle in my life that I can be a conduit and be a kingdom worker and a servant leader for Him.
Praise God. Now that's what it's about. Okay, with the book, you say, can you please say the title of your book again for the viewers?
Yes, it's What's in the Closet. It's
What?
you can purchase it on Amazon.
Okay.
And so if they, but most people need to, my name is spelled different. It's FERNJINKINS, or they can simply call me and I can mail them an autograph copy. My number is 817-791-5718, and the books are $10.
Oh my God. And I could tell from your story, this is a must read. So again, her book, What's in the Closet, Fern Jenkins, she is the author of What's in the Closet. Her book can be published on Amazon. And we all know we have access to Amazon. It's easy to get to. That's a great thing as well. I want to ask you, Fern, is there any additional contact information that you want to share for the viewers so they can get in contact with you for whatever reason?
Absolutely. So we are gearing up for our back to school drive for Health Host Inc. We're partnering with Morningside School. And we
Right.
need people's assistance with that because we're helping children that live in a socio-economic environment. That website is www.heatherhopes.com. That's heatherhopesinc.com.
Praise God for him. That is an awesome, amazing thing that you're doing for children. And again, you have been such a blessing to my platform today. It is an honor to have you to share your transparency. I know you're going to help set free so many lives that's dealing with CPS, and so much encouragement has went forth today. Thank you for letting God use you in your story. Last but not least, I would ask you, would you please share as we close the story today or wrap up our show today? What final advice or encouragement would you share with our listening audience?
Absolutely. In the event that your child is removed from CPS, don't give up. Connect with someone that can pray you through the process. Make
Absolutely.
sure that you get therapy for you and your children when they return.
Absolutely.
You are stronger than what you believe. God do not bring you to something that he cannot walk you out of.
Ooh, don't give me the shouting on here now, Fern. Don't do that.
It's going to be a little trying and it's going to be painful,
Yeah.
but you can walk through this. Just trust in the word of God that says, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I touch and agree with what you just said. God bless you, Fern. Again, please, everyone, go to check out her book on Amazon. It is called. Say it again for me, Fern. Is it What's in the
What?
Closet?
Yes, what's in the closet?
What's in the Closet? I love that title. So again, Fern, thank you so much. May you continue to be blessed and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you for allowing me to be on your platform. God bless you 1,000 times greater.
Oh my God, thank you so very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my goodness, gosh, I am just overjoyed, honestly, with what God is doing. The people that what the devil thought, what the CPS, and again, I'm speaking to people of CPS that is not working out of integrity. The ones that are not working out of integrity, I am calling you out to be better for these children, for these families, because it's a lot of parents that really love their children. People make mistakes. I don't think it's fair for you to just cast somebody down because they made a mistake. I think you should take that opportunity to make it better so they can be a better parent for them and most importantly for their children. And I do believe Fern's show was a great example of what it takes to go through a season, but build yourself up and don't give up and don't give out and don't let it break you because tough people, you might endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. So don't give up. That's what I want to tell you today. I thank God for you tuning in today. I pray this story has encouraged you. I pray that you will learn from this story. And I also want to just tell you to keep God first, no matter what. And don't you ever give up on fighting for your children because they love you and they deserve to be with you. And with God, where there is a will, there is a way. So don't never give up. Keep fighting for your children and watch and see how God will turn it around for you. So again, thank you so much for tuning into my show today, Beautifully Bruised in the CPS show. I am your host, Latrika Jones. Thank you for watching and please have a blessed day.